In this episode, we're going to make regular security testing feel like a normal, responsible habit rather than a stressful event you dread once a year. Security controls are promises you make about how your environment behaves under pressure, and testing is how you confirm those promises are actually true. In payment environments, the stakes are high because a single hidden weakness can expose cardholder data, disrupt payments, or undermine trust in the entire program. Beginners often assume that if controls were configured correctly once, they will stay correct forever, but systems change constantly through updates, new features, staff turnover, and operational shortcuts. Regular testing is the antidote to drift because it catches problems that quietly appear after changes. The phrase "prove it works" matters because compliance language often talks about requirements. But the real goal is evidence that protections operate as intended in real conditions. When you test regularly and you can show the results, you move from hoping your security posture is strong to knowing where it is strong and where it needs improvement. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A helpful way to start is to understand what counts as security testing, because it is broader than running a scan or hiring someone to try to hack you. Security testing includes validating that configurations match expected standards, confirming that access controls behave properly, checking that logging and monitoring are functioning, and verifying that critical protections like encryption are actually in place. It can also include targeted testing of specific changes, such as a new payment page or an updated authentication flow. The goal is to evaluate whether controls are effective, not just whether they exist. For beginners, it helps to think of security testing like a safety inspection for a vehicle. You do not just confirm the brakes are installed. You press the brakes and see whether the car stops reliably. In security, a firewall rule or an access policy is not proven by its presence, but by its behavior under realistic conditions. Regular testing also depends on a sensible cadence, because testing once a year creates long periods where weaknesses can persist unnoticed. A good program aligns testing frequency with risk and with change, meaning you test more often when the environment changes more often or when the impact of failure is higher. Some testing is continuous, such as automated checks during development or monitoring validation for critical systems. Some testing is periodic, such as quarterly reviews of access or scheduled vulnerability assessments. And some testing is event-driven, meaning it happens after significant changes, like new systems being added, major network modifications, or changes to payment flows. Beginners sometimes look for one universal schedule, but mature security recognizes that frequency should match reality. Regular testing is not about doing busy work on a calendar. It is about ensuring that protections keep pace with the environment. One core teaching beat is vulnerability management testing, which is the practice of finding known weaknesses in systems before attackers do. Vulnerabilities can come from outdated software, misconfigurations, weak services, or insecure settings. Testing for vulnerabilities helps you identify what needs to be patched, hardened, or reconfigured. For beginners, the important idea is that vulnerabilities are not moral failures. They are normal byproducts of complex systems that require consistent attention. The value of vulnerability testing is that it provides a map of exposure, and that map helps you prioritize fixes that reduce real risk. However, a common misunderstanding is that a vulnerability report is the finish line. The report is the start of the work, and the real proof is remediation and verification that the weakness is addressed. Testing regularly means you repeat this cycle because new vulnerabilities appear and environments evolve. Configuration testing is another high-impact area because many security failures are caused by settings, not by broken code. A system can be fully patched and still be exposed if it is configured to allow risky access or to log too little information. Configuration testing can involve comparing systems against expected baselines, verifying that default accounts are disabled, confirming that encryption settings are correct, and checking that network access rules are aligned with segmentation plans. For beginners, it helps to see configuration as the behavior of the system, not just a collection of options. A single misconfiguration can open a door that attackers can exploit without needing advanced techniques. Regular testing helps catch these doors, especially after changes or maintenance. When you treat configuration validation as a routine test, you reduce the chance that drift turns into breach. Access control testing is particularly important in payment environments because access control is often where security succeeds or fails. Testing access control means confirming that only authorized roles can access sensitive systems and data, and that unauthorized users are blocked. It also means testing that privilege boundaries work as expected, such as ensuring a normal user cannot perform administrative actions or reach restricted resources. Beginners may assume that if the access policy is written, the system enforces it, but policies in reality can diverge through mistakes in group memberships, stale accounts, or misapplied permissions. Regular testing can include reviews of access lists, as well as functional checks that attempt to access resources using accounts with different roles. The goal is not to trick the system for sport, but to confirm that boundaries are real. When you can demonstrate that boundaries hold, you can prove that need-to-know access is enforced, not just intended. Logging and monitoring should also be tested because monitoring is only useful if it reliably detects the events you care about. Testing monitoring can include confirming that key access events are logged, that logs are forwarded and retained, and that alerts trigger when expected. It can also include verifying that time synchronization is consistent so events can be correlated during investigations. Beginners sometimes assume monitoring systems are always on and always accurate, but monitoring can fail silently through misconfigurations, storage issues, disabled agents, or poor alert tuning. Regular testing helps ensure you are not blind when you think you are watching. It also helps you measure whether monitoring is producing meaningful signals rather than noise. In a prove-it-works mindset, monitoring is not proven by a dashboard. It is proven by the ability to detect and respond to simulated or known events. Segmentation testing is another concept that matters because many payment environments rely on network boundaries to reduce the scope of sensitive systems. Segmentation means separating the cardholder data environment from other networks so that access is limited and controlled. Testing segmentation means verifying that the boundaries actually prevent unauthorized connections and that the network paths behave as designed. For beginners, the key idea is that segmentation is not an abstract diagram. It is a set of enforced controls that must be validated. A firewall rule change, a new system connection, or a misconfigured routing path can create unintended connectivity that undermines segmentation. Regular testing catches these unintended paths before they become exploit paths. The proof here is not a statement that segmentation exists, but evidence that traffic is restricted as expected. Application security testing fits into regular testing because payment environments often include software that handles sensitive flows. Application testing can include checking for common weaknesses, validating that sensitive data is not logged or exposed, and confirming that authentication and authorization behave properly. It also includes testing changes, because new features often introduce new risk. Beginners sometimes think application security is only for programmers, but from a control perspective, it is about ensuring the application does not become the weakest link. Regular testing means you do not wait for customers to discover problems, and you do not assume that a previously secure application stays secure after updates. The key is to treat application behavior as testable and to seek evidence that it remains aligned with security requirements. When you do this, you build confidence that the software supports the security posture rather than eroding it. An important teaching beat is the difference between testing and auditing because they can sound similar but serve different purposes. Auditing often focuses on verifying that requirements are met and that evidence exists, while testing focuses on whether controls actually work in practice. In a mature program, auditing and testing support each other because testing produces evidence and auditing ensures the program remains disciplined. Beginners might think that if documentation is perfect, security is perfect, but documentation can be wrong or outdated. Testing provides a reality check that can reveal where documentation is disconnected from actual behavior. When you test regularly, you also create a trail of results that shows improvement over time, not just a snapshot. That trail helps demonstrate that security is being actively managed, not passively claimed. Proving it works also requires good handling of test results, because testing that produces findings without follow-through is just measurement without improvement. A mature approach captures findings, assigns ownership, sets timelines, and verifies remediation. It also prioritizes based on risk, because not every issue is equally urgent. Beginners sometimes struggle with prioritization because everything sounds scary, but a disciplined program focuses on what could lead to real compromise of sensitive data or control of critical systems. Proof includes showing that issues were identified, addressed, and retested, so you can demonstrate closure rather than endless discovery. It also includes learning from patterns, such as recurring misconfigurations or repeated vulnerabilities, and addressing root causes so the same problems do not return. When testing feeds improvement, it becomes a driver of resilience rather than a generator of anxiety. As you put all of this together, testing security regularly and proving it works becomes a cycle of validation, improvement, and evidence. You test vulnerabilities to find known weaknesses early, and you follow through with remediation and verification. You validate configurations and access controls because drift and mistakes are common and can create hidden doors. You test monitoring so you know you can detect meaningful events, and you test segmentation and application behavior because boundaries in software are frequent attack surfaces. You align testing frequency with change and risk, so testing stays relevant rather than ceremonial. You treat test results as actionable work, with ownership and retesting, so improvement is real and visible. When you can do all of that consistently, you are no longer relying on hope or on a single annual moment of attention. You are proving, over and over, that the protections you claim are actually protecting.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.